Hi, and welcome to a short video for the Zero to ASIC course. And this is a interview with Anton talking about his experience taking the course. So, hi, Anton. How are you doing?
Hi, Matt. Yeah, I'm doing well, thanks.
Yeah. Could you just say your name and what your job is?
Yeah, sure. My name is Anton Maurovic, and I'm the General Manager of Technology for a company that produces an online learning platform as a type of wholesale product. And we also produce a lot of training material. I have a background in software development, but for the last 5 years have been doing mostly management.
Okay. So this is like a hobby thing for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Electronics has always been a bit of a casual interest for me, particularly digital electronics. But it's something that I'm trying to get a lot more seriously into now.
Yeah, sure. Why can you explain why you wanted to do the course?
Yeah, well, I first found out about the course from listening to the Ampower podcast, in which I know you've had a couple of appearances, and hearing about the possibilities of being able to do a design of my own chip and actually getting it manufactured. Prior to hearing that seemed impossible. I had heard about the fact that Google was sponsoring the original Open MPW shuttles, but I always assumed it was something where you would have to be, say, a researcher, or you would have to have a very strong digital design background and have actual hardware experience. But upon hearing that through, say, Tiny Tape Out and the Zero to ASIC course, that it was actually possible for someone like me to start with almost no experience, be able to produce a design, no matter how simple or complex I wanted it to be, and then actually get it manufactured. And despite the long lead time that it takes, actually get it back in my hands someday, it just seemed too good to be true. So I think one of the other things that attracted me to it was the fact that it was a good structure for how to use open source tools and an actual community of people who were getting behind this. Some of them beginners and some of them experienced as well.
So it was the practical side was important for you, actually being able to do a tape out.
Yes, definitely. I mean, there's a lot that I really got out of just learning the steps as well, because I mean, I'd heard of some of the tools involved, but never really paid much attention to them. The fact that the course was able to sort of string those things together meant that I could see that there was a way that I could actually go through this and get a solid understanding of it, and then potentially just grow my own knowledge, even aside from the fact that a tape out might be a possibility.
Cool. And what part of the course did you enjoy the most?
I think one of the things I really enjoyed was being able to see some simple but practical designs. So, for instance, one of the designs that you've got involves being able to use rotary encoder knobs, and then how to do things like being able to sense them reliably, and then actually use that to perform some calculations and actually produce a result. So it wasn't necessarily just strictly a computation device. It was actually that you could present some examples and explain how they work at a fairly straightforward sequential level, and then use that to actually build a functioning device of a relatively simple nature. I think another thing that I enjoyed as well was being able to learn a lot about the testing aspects, about how there's a lot of formal verification that you can do, and some of the procedures that you can use for testing, both using, say, the Verilog language, as well as CocoaTB, because I hadn't even heard of CocoaTB before joining the course.
Great, thanks. What would you say was the most valuable part of the course for you?
I think being able to actually see what the process was for being able to start a design, knowing what considerations you needed in terms of inputs and outputs, and also some of the traps about things like the need to synchronize certain digital inputs, and what to avoid doing, and so that you can get your timing right, because it's a very different approach when you're actually going to synthesize a design out of the actual standard cells, to what you might do with, say, writing software. where everything is very forgiving, and there are a lot of different ways that it can help you out in the software world. And also, even like for someone who's experienced coming from FPGAs, I'm not, but I dabbled a little bit in the past. There are some practical things that really sort of it helps you have a better understanding and appreciation for what's actually happening at the electron level. So I think that was probably one of the most rewarding and valuable things that I found in the course. Second to that was probably just actually knowing how to run the tools. There are so many moving parts involved, and there's a lot of documentation out there, and a lot of it can lead you down the garden path. But the Zero to ASIC course, I think, really it was valuable how it allowed me to short circuit a lot of other stuff that might otherwise be a big distraction, and really focus on getting something that works and being able to see it run through.
Worth the money?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. I think that it's, for some people, it's perhaps a bit on the pricey side compared to some courses that you might be able to find online, but the concise nature of the course just really made it worthwhile. And I think that I would recommend it to anyone.
Yeah. And if you're watching this and it is too expensive, then check out the grant option that we have to apply for a cheaper ticket. Okay, so let's move on to so how many tape outs have you done now?
I have just completed a 5th tape out. And I've gotten a bit addicted to the process, I think. Sometimes it's unforgiving, but I think there's a great deal of satisfaction that comes from knowing you've actually got something going through manufacturing somewhere else on the other side of the planet.
Yeah. From my perspective, it is also extremely satisfying to see someone really take advantage and get so deeply involved as you've done. So maybe let's focus on one of your more recent ones. So you joined round when we kind of transitioned from depending on the Google-sponsored lottery shuttle, and now that has seemingly ended. But in the meantime, we've got Tiny Tape Out, which means that anyone on the course is like guaranteed to do a tape out if they want to. And that's what you've been taking advantage of, as well as the Google-sponsored ones as well, right?
Well, when I first started, it was in February 2023, and everyone was kind of hanging on the assumption that there would be...
It hadn't been announced yet, had it?
Yeah. We thought there was going to be another one in April or so, and then it just sort of seemed to keep dragging out, and I think the writing was on the wall. It wasn't going to happen. At which point in time, Tiny Tape Out was, I think, really just starting to mature at that point. By the time I'd gone through the course, I had a design in mind that I wanted to do, which was originally going to be just a very simple Pong-like game. It's a popular thing to do, I think, when you're learning digital design like this. But I wasn't quite sure when I was going to be able to tape it out, and if I wanted to make it more complicated than what it already was. So my first submission was to Tiny Tape Out 3. Which was a very simple multiplier design, where you would just load into a couple of registers and then clock out the result. But even though I had to go for something simple in order to be able to get it through, that kind of whet my appetite. And from there, I went on to increasingly more complex designs. And there are a lot of constraints with the technology available to us, but in those constraints is where I think we find a lot of creativity. There's some people who've pulled off some amazing things in like a tiny fraction of the little 3 by 3 millimeters that the chip actually is. So my second design, which was to an experimental Tiny Tape Out run, was that Pong-like design that I did, where I tried to get it really down to as small as I possibly could. And in the end, it was only about, I think about 400 gates or something like that.
Good job.
Yeah. And it's amazing to think that, especially considering that you have registers like counters to deal with, which are a chain of registers, it was amazing that I could get something producing an actual video display in such a small area. So there is quite a lot of value in the tiles that you have with the Tiny Tape Out program. My magnum opus, so to speak, is another VGA project. I spent quite a lot of time on this one, and it's called Raybox Zero, and it is a ray casting demo that's inspired by very old video games from the 90s, a 3D simulation effect. If you like, I can show a quick video of what it's like in action.
Add that in. There we go.
So this is a pre-recorded example of my design running on an FPGA. And so I'm using a relatively basic FPGA here. And I've set it up so that I've got a Raspberry Pi Pico, just a bit banging SPI data to the design so that I can use my PC to control it. And so you can see me, for instance, using my mouse to move around, and I'm using keys on the keyboard to change the textures of various walls and so forth. And this allowed me not only to do a lot of rapid prototyping, but really actually proved that the design should conceivably work when synthesized in silicon, because this is running on real hardware. And it was really quite exciting the first time I actually got this to run, because this runs at a buttery smooth 60 frames per second. Which is on a simple VGA display, like actually really quite effective. The color depth here is only 6-bit, so 2 bits per each of the red, green, blue channels. But there's a lot that you can do with that. And part of the reason it's constrained as much as it is because I did want to minimize the amount of area. This particular version, even without me doing heavy optimization, was on the order of about 600 by 600 microns. So we're talking about the size of a grain of sand, really. And this was what I just demoed there was the second version of the design that I'd done, which I was lucky enough to get included as part of a ChipIgnite shuttle. There were a few of us who got to participate in that, funded by someone else who was doing a more scientific design. But I did have an earlier version of that also on Tiny Tape Out 4. Which used a total of 8 cells, but really probably could have been shrunk to about 6 cells if I'd had a little
tiles.
bit. Sorry, that's right. Yes, 8 tiles. Could have been shrunk probably down to about 6 if I had a little bit more time. But that's the thing is, you keep wanting to put in more features, and then the clock keeps ticking and the deadline comes. And you've got to get something out there.
Great. So Tiny Tape Out was your 3 was your first one. So we are expecting the silicon back for that shortly. So that'll be great.
Yeah, really exciting.
Get silicon in your hands.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks very much for sharing all that with us, Anton. Any other thoughts before we go?
I think probably I would recommend that anyone check out the course. Look at the material that's available and decide if it's right for you. I think that no matter what, you will get something exciting out of it. You will learn a new skill. You may even just learn what the future of the open source direction of VLSI design is. And I think that it's a great introduction as well to a lot of aspects of hardware design in general, certainly in the digital domain. And I think that it can kind of open the floodgates to look at more sophisticated stuff if that is your interest, be it analog or other research.
Great. Thanks again, Anton.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, Matt.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one.